Welcome to Inspiring Insurance. Our goal is to provide value to the insurance industry through real-life experiences from insurance professionals who have walked the walk. You can expect to hear story sharing, top tips, and practical advice to help you grow and succeed in your career. We hope you enjoy this episode's guest.
Welcome back to Inspiring Insurance. Today we are filming episode number 19. I'm joined by Cloughessy from Sydney. Chris has been in the insurance industry for the last 15 years, now a team leader at Collective Insurance Brokers. Thanks for joining me, Chris.
No problems, Nathan. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Well, always like to kick these off finding out how people fell into the industry, or maybe didn't fall into the industry. What's the story behind insurance for you?
I was one of those people that fell into the industry. So it wasn't like I left high school and went, I'm going to go into insurance as my career. I actually went into university and did psychology and decided 3 years into my 5-year course that I wasn't wanting to keep down that line. So I jumped into telecommunications and then did that for a year. And then one of my friends who was working in insurance said, oh, have you thought of doing insurance? And I'm like, no, I've not thought of it. Let's apply. So I applied and got the role in my very first job as a claims consultant with IAG and basically worked from there upwards. So it was a very, very harsh introduction to insurance, I will say that. But yeah, I just basically fell into it. I did not plan to do insurance. I didn't even think insurance at that time was an actual career choice. So yeah.
Nice. So you said you had a harsh start to insurance. Talk me through that. What does that mean?
So I fell into a team that was really behind. So back 10 years or 16 years ago when I started, we were back in the paper days. So we had paper files, we had reams of paper. The team that I was hired for was in the landlord's insurance space. So it had a team leader, no senior. I think I was one of 3 new starters that joined that team. I was fairly young, so like I said, I wasn't ready for the volume of work that I was being receiving in that role, and it was effectively a 1-month induction course of what insurance is, what the company is, and then hit the ground running after that. So my my first couple of months in that role was very challenging. I was young. I didn't really know my way around things. And I used to go home really stressed out. So it was a very, very tough time, but I have obviously built the resilience skills from that. So yeah, that's the beginning of it.
Yeah, wow. I think that's really great because a lot of people in that sort of situation would say, no, insurance is not for me, and they would just leave the industry and never return. How did you kind of overcome that? Because I'm presuming that probably went through your head at one point.
Yeah, it went through my head a lot. Look, I don't like turning away from a challenge. I'm not a type that turns away from challenges very easily. So I was lucky enough to be part of an organization at that time, which was led by a great claims manager. And she took me under her wing and she said to me, look, you only have to do this for about 3 years. She goes, usually within the first 3 years, it's a tough time, especially for someone who doesn't have insurance industry knowledge. He goes, but if you can last 3 years, then you'll start getting better. And pretty much it worked. So it was very monotonous. I had to get used to the process and the routine day in and day out. But it was having a great claims manager at the time and a great team leader that supported me through that change. And out of the 3 that started, 1 left within a week and said, no, I can't do this. And the other 2, so myself and the other girl, we just stuck to it. And day by day, it took it, but day by day, it got better. So I wouldn't be here where I am today without that support from that claims manager all those years ago.
What's one piece of advice that claims manager gave you all those years ago, which still resonates with you today?
If you last 5 years in the industry, you'll be there forever. And then here we are. And I actually say that to my staff now and everyone that I've actually dealt with in my journey. I said to them, look, when you start off, yes, it's hard. Yes, you have to learn a whole new world because insurance is it's a very different engine in the GI space. It's not clear cut. You've got a lot of challenges. You've got to change your thinking a lot. But I always say to them, you just stick it out. Keep looking for the opportunities to develop yourself. Keep sticking into what you're doing, and then when you reach that 5 year mark, you have accumulated that much knowledge and that much day-to-day function that you can actually stick it out in the industry a lot longer.
For sure. And so you said the first 3 years for you was that kind of teething period for you. What were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome in your first 3 years?
Well, my first obstacle was not being so black and white. So in the claims space, you obviously, from an insurance point of view, insurance company point of view, you are working within a PBS, within a policy booklet. For me, I'm not a grey thinker. I don't sit in the grey spectrum. I am quite analytical, so it's either yes or no, or can and can't. It's very polarized. For those first 3 years, I had to adapt to thinking in the grey spectrum, and it took me some time because I used to come up against my TL all the time and say to her, but the policy doesn't say that. The policy says this. And she's like, but the policy is our guidelines. It's not how we interpret it. So that was probably one of the biggest obstacles I had, because I had to deal with getting over my own way that I'm wired in my brain, to try to adapt to how insurance is applied to the end user. So that would probably be my hardest obstacle. That it took me about 2 years to get over it. By the third year, I was thinking more grey, and then I was moving into a different product line at that stage. And I had to be even more grey in thinking in that new product line that I moved into. So
yeah, wow. Okay, there you go. It's so common. We hear this in the industry all the time, that people going into claims, because usually claims people don't come from an insurance background. It's their kind of first stepping stone into insurance, and people always say to us that the challenges that they have to go through in those first few years are really, really hard. And a lot of people go into claims because they've got the empath side to them. They like helping people, and that's really, really important. So kind of balancing that with learning everything and the challenges that come with you it's really hard. So nice.
Yeah, so it's true. People do fall into the claim side of things more because of that people connection, and that's probably one of the reasons why I stepped into the claims role and not into a risk management or underwriting role, because my passion lies with communication and intercommunication with people. So that's why I fell into the claim space, but I was not prepared for learning something completely different and foreign to what I was used to, and then having to deal with volume at the same time. So I had to quickly learn how to time manage. I had to quickly learn how to think grey, all within the space of 3 years.
Yeah, wow. And so that was the first 3 years of your career. What happened next?
So next I I stayed with IAG. I was with IAG for a total of 6 years. So I basically moved into business policies, farm pack policies, went into the corporate and commercial spaces, where I just got the flexibility of different people and different individuals in insurance, and how all the different coverages worked. So I basically jumped quite a bit in my first 6 years of the company. I moved from claims to quality assurance, where I had a passion for quality assurance at that time, still do, and I was able to not look at it from a individual portfolio level. I was more now focusing departmental positions. So I actually moved through the ranks fairly quickly. I spent about 2 years in quality assurance for the national team. Then I moved into management for my first time. So for the first 4 years, I was always trying to go for that management role. Never quite got there. Other candidates came in over top of me. But then when I started doing quality assurance and I started looking at it from a department level, that's when I got headhunted by another department. So so that was my 6 years in IAG. After that, I went into I left IAG altogether and I went to Gallagher Bassett, and I did some third-party administration claims there, and that was probably the fun part of my journey because I learnt a lot in that space. That's where I got my liability exposures, and I had some great stories that came out of some of the claims I did. So, and then I just moved in through to Strata and stuck in Strata. So that's pretty much where I am now, but on the brokerage side. So I'm no longer on the insurer side, and I always thought being employed by an insurance company, I thought would be where I would always be. And the reason being was you're there, you're making decisions, you're doing what's right, you're helping people out in their time of need, and that's where I thought I'd always be. But then I landed in collective insurance brokers, and I realized that being a broker, I have a lot more pull when it comes to advocating for my client as opposed to that from an insurance claims consultant, because I'm able to fight with unlimited bounds with an insurance company as being a broker, because we've got sway, we've got client, we've got our client's interests at heart. So being where I am now, I don't think I'll ever go back to being an insurance company. So.
And how did you, where I'm going with this, a lot of the things that we hear in the industry is going from that insurer to the brokerage, having that client advocacy upon you. It's a real mindset shift for people because they're so used to, as you said earlier, the black and white of a PDS. How did you shift your mindset into that client advocacy side of things?
For me, it wasn't really much of a shift. I didn't really have what a lot of people experience when they transition from insurance company to brokerage. I think because a lot of my roles in the insurance company space was dealing with direct clients. It was dealing with the mums and dads or the policy holders. It was dealing with business policies and business owners. So I was always, whilst in my early stages with IAG and CGU insurance, CGU was intermediated, so it was highly broker involved. So yes, I was dealing with brokers, but I was also dealing with the policyholders. I think back 10 years ago, how insurance and intermediated business was back then is very different to how it is now. Back then, you did heavily involve on the intermediated component, and you had to build that relationship. So for me, when I came into the brokerage role 6 years ago, I didn't really have that transition shift because I was already dealing with lot owners. I was already dealing with mums and dads. I was already dealing with a normal person, a person that's not known in the industry. So when I came over to being a broker, I had the ability to anticipate what the insurance company wanted, and also translate that into a way that our client could understand it. So for me, and again, that's probably where my psychology skills also pull into, because I act as the translation. I'm not the party that's going from here to there and there to here and passing information around. I'm not a mailbox, or I'm not a robot. Instead, I'm getting the information, translating it and spitting it out the other end. And then when the client comes to me, I translate it and spit it out for the insurer. So it wasn't a challenge for me. But in saying that, a lot of my direct reports have come from insurance company spaces, and this is their first time in a brokerage. And a lot of people, especially on the broker side, they'll always say, "You've come over to the dark side. You've come over to the dark side." There is no dark side, though. The thing is, the transition, what I say to them is, you need to remember who you're acting for, and you're acting for your client, your policy holder, your owner's corporation, how would you run a claim for your mum and dad? If you and that's the question I ask them, and I say to them, you need to put yourself into their shoes and how you would deal if your mum and dad said, "I need you to look after a claim for me," and then that is how you transition. Part of what I say to my team now is being a broker is more than being a mailbox. So it's more than just passing information along. You need to be able to explain the goods and the bads and the uglies with both sides of the spectrum. So yeah, for me, the transition wasn't that much of a challenge. It was more a strength that I had that I carried over from previous roles.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like having that insurer background is very, very beneficial to what you do now, because you do know how they're going to respond to what you're trying to give to them.
So I know how to interpret policy, and that's probably the challenge. That's probably a big challenge for people coming into brokerage spaces from claims in insurance, because in insurers you're working to a policy bound, so you're stuck to the boundaries you can't go outside of.
Sure.
Whereas in a broker, you can go outside those bounds. You can go as far as the legislation allows you to. And so when you come into being a broker as a broking claims consultant, I think the hardest thing is confidence. People don't know how far they can push the insurance company in certain decisions. And so what I try to say to my guys is, you just need to take on and be confident in who you are. You know your knowledge. You know how to anticipate what an insurance company is going to ask for. So you join those two things together.
Yeah, nice. That's so good. And you said something earlier, which I don't want you to think that I missed it, but you said that there's a lot of curly stories from your time in.
Oh yes, I know you will want to know one of my curly stories, so I'll give you a funny story. So that's fine. So it was back when I was in TPA. TPA for so I'll say it's a national and international fast food chain. So you would always get a lot of fun situations from liability matters or liability scenarios. But this one, whilst it was humorous, it's also humbling to also experience. So basically what happened was there was a claimant who phoned me while he was in the bathroom of the fast food restaurant, explaining to me that he's been locked in the cubicle. So he went into the cubicle, went to do his business. Somehow must have been something wrong with the locking mechanism. It jammed. So he was stuck in the cubicle in this fast food restaurant before closing time. So of all the people he had to ring, he rang me as a TPA claims consultant, purely because he dealt with me on another unrelated matter. But he felt that I had the power to somehow help him in his situation. So I actually had to, it was quite interesting because this person made a claim and was a claimant on another liability matter, which was resolved. But this matter was completely brand new. So I had to be very careful, because as the TPA for the client, and when we're talking about a fast food chain, they are self-insured, so they don't have an underwriting agency or a security backing them. So their funds come from their own money. So I had to be very careful, because here's a person that is technically going to be a claimant, technically going to be lodging a claim for liability from my client, but he's phoning me to give him help to get out of the toilet. So I had to be very careful. I had to phone the licensee. The licensee said, "Okay, not a problem. We'll make a note of the door." But then I had to phone the manager of that fast food chain, and I called the manager up, and the managers are usually quite busy. They're quite young as well in most cases. And they're like, "Oh, what do you need?" And I'm like, "You need to go to your male bathroom. You need to go to cubicle 2, and you need to open the door." And they're like, "Why?" And I said, "Because you got someone trapped in there." But that story was probably one of many humorous stories that I've had. But the reason why it's so humbling is this person could have called the McDonald's store himself. He could have yelled out in the cubicle for all I know, but he actually chose to call myself because I helped him in a claim.
Yeah.
And the fact that, and that just for me um, highlights how people think. And they obviously think to people who help them the most, and that's who they call to rely on. And that's how I use that for every single one of my interactions with, whether it's a client, an insurance company, whoever I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
I keep reminding myself of that person in the toilet.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously in a time of need. He's got no one else to call. He'll call me, and that's why that's why people call people insurance professionals. So
yeah. Sure. Oh, great story. Thank you for sharing that.
it's all good.
So claims can be quite stressful for clients. So what strategies do you use to keep empathy at the center of the process for you?
So the strategies I usually employ are just listening. It's active listening. A lot of the time when people do get heated in conversations, or um, while they may not be heated, they may be very forceful in conversations. I like to just sit back and listen. And I'm the type that will sit back, listen to them vent, listen to them explain the whole story before I start having my conversation. Now, when I teach this to guys in the team at the moment, I say to them, people are yelling at you for a reason. They're yelling at you because they're really invested in what they're talking about. And sometimes empathy is just listening and not talking.
Yeah.
That's sometimes the most important point of empathy. Other parts of empathy is putting yourself into their shoes, understanding where they're coming from. So for me, the active listening component is the strongest suit that I use. And then it gets to a point of, once I've listened, then I structure and then I relay it back to whoever is on the phone to explain the situation. Now, sometimes they'll come back and they'll start interrupting me, in which case I will tell them to stop interrupting me because I've given you the chance to talk. Now you're going to give me the same respect to talk back. So I usually take control of conversation through that manner.
Nice. And so you've gone through your career, you've been leading teams for the last, what are we now, like 8-ish years or something like that?
Years,
yeah. What do you think makes a strong claims leader, and how do you bring out the best in your team?
So again, I was taught this many years ago. There's a difference between a claims manager and a claims leader. Managers manage process, leaders lead people. So for me, leading people can be a challenge in itself because everyone goes every way. But I need to have respect from people. So for people to follow me, I would need to gain their respect first. And then they would also need to share that equal respect back with myself. And once I've got that respect, I'm basically their rock. I'm their go-to for whatever it might be. It might be work related. It might be personal related. Most of the time, the conversations we have with our direct reports are more acting as a counsellor than as their team leader. Being there and doing the work that they do is very important. You can't. I don't expect anyone to do something that I can't do. So therefore, when I'm being a team leader, I'm pretty much doing their job. I'm pretty much in the trenches with them. I will defend them. I'll support them. I'll coach them. I'll develop them. I'll mentor them. I'll be their friend when it's outside of work. I'm pretty much there every step of the way, and that's one thing I love about where I am at the moment. We all treat each other as family. We don't treat each other as employees. We don't call each other bosses or things like that. We try to detract away from that. It's very much a unified commitment to each other.
Yeah, great. And you said that all stems from, I guess, gaining their respect from the get-go. What do you do to gain that respect? Do you have any specific strategy that you have in place, or?
I basically just try to understand them as an individual. So I will, if I have a new person in my team, for example, I will call them up and I'll ask them, what do you do on the weekend?
Yep.
What do you do outside of work? What do you like to do? How do you like to be taught? I try to get to know them as much as possible on an individual level before I start coaching them or developing them. And usually I find that process and that tactic works because everyone's different. So if I invest time in one person, that will show to them that I'm respecting them. And then hopefully they'll feel comfortable enough to release some of their information so that then they can respect me. So that's the main strategy I use.
Yeah, nice. And how do you identify when you've gained that respect from them? Is there any telltale signs? How will you know?
It's usually the minute they say, "Oh, thank you for helping me." The minute I get that thank you, I know that I've got their support, and they've got my support. Everyone's very different, but look, usually by the end of the very first induction that I have with anyone, they're usually saying thank you. So I also know throughout my career or throughout surveys when customer surveys are done, company surveys are done, the feedback that comes through that is quite humbling as well. So I know that I get the respect from people quite immediately. I don't want to say that I'm a seer or anything, but I'm very good at reading people. So
Nice. All comes back to that empath side of things in claims, right?
It does. It also comes back to the psychology of people as well. So
yeah, nice. What advice would you have to someone who might be new to the claims industry and just joining out these days?
My advice to them would be stick with learning the basis first. Don't think that you need to come into the industry and rush into it and jump straight around and do as many things as possible. Take your time because the insurance industry is vast. You've got multiple product lines, you've got multiple types of employment. Even nowadays, we've got the whole hybrid working environment, flexible working environment. So people feel the need that when they come in, they need to learn everything within a certain time frame. They need to be everything for everyone. My advice to them is just take your time. First, learn what it is that you need to learn. Learn the foundations first before moving on to the next level. Because if you don't know your foundation and you start on your next level, you're just going to fall apart and go back to square one. So it's also learning to, or not learning, but aligning with people who are prepared to teach you. Some people aren't good facilitators. They don't like to be mentors. They don't like to be coaches. Other people in the industry or in the organization are more aligned to that. And so you need to pick out those people and ask for help. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know.
Nice. I think that's a really, really nice way to wrap this up as well. So thank you so much. We covered a lot in 30 minutes. We've got a bathroom story. We've got lots of things.
We've condensed 16 years of my career into 30 minutes. That's great.
Good job. Well, Chris, thanks so much for taking the time to be a guest on Inspiring Insurance. Much appreciated. There's definitely a lot of value add, and I hope the people that listen to this definitely get some key takeaways. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for listening. A big thank you to our guest, and we hope you found some value from this episode's chat. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to send it to a mate and hit follow so you don't miss what's next. I'm Nathan Anning, Director and Insurance Recruiter at Impact Talent Australia. Catch you next time.